Oh yes, Curvidor, come on board for yet another sensation through the bilge of internet and of the missionary movies. Today, let's make dangerous people angry, because even if I won't criticize Islam, even if I won't claim anything about this religion itself, the simple fact to address criticism to even remotely linked topics raises violence and threats. This is actually the property of all extremism. Racism, Christianism, Hinduism, Judaism, everything. But nowadays, the fastest and most violent reactions come from Muslim extremists when something don't fit their worst view. In order to cure this problem, we will apply the same medicine everywhere. Use our logic and our right to live our lives the way we intend to. The movie Holy Mysteries, Secrets of the Kaaba has apparently been released in 2009 and seems to be a Turkish production. I could not find much about the film. In the average Google results, you don't find easily much relevant information concerning its director or the people who took part in the project, but I didn't look too much in details. I'd rather let the maker present his work himself.
Holy Mysteries, in theaters in September 2009. Mecca has been ordered as Kotor direction, convention place for billions of Muslims, and as the holy center of Islam. Soon, you will witness the scientific proof of unbelievable mysteries that have remained hidden in the holy city, Mecca, for thousands of years.
Oh, scientific proof. You chose the word, you chose the field on which you want to play the game. I hope you understand something to science, otherwise you're going to be very disappointed.
The constant, superior design number of mathematics, 1.618.
As you can already guess from the way it's formulated, this claim will not really be discussed in a scientific way. Spoiler alert! During the whole video, there will be only a collection of various approximations that fit what the author wants to see. It is actually based on the same way of reasoning as the conspiracy theories. As long as you can force the data to fit in the model, you can use them and bend them as much as you wish. Let's see how they are proceeding.
The creator has always used the very same number in numerous events in the universe. In our heart pulses, the aspect ratio of DNA spiral, and the special design of the universe, which is named as dodecahedron, and the leaf array rules of plants, which is named as phyllotaxy, in the snowflakes crystals, in the spiral structure of numerous galaxies. The creator has used the same number, the number of golden mean, 1.618.
Okay, sailor, let's proceed in the order of appearance as polite pirates always do. First, what is the golden ratio? You do not even explain it. According to Wikipedia, in mathematics, two quantities are in golden ratio if their ratio is the same as the ratio of their sum to the larger of the two quantities. The figure on the right illustrates the geometrical relationship, expressed algebraically for quantities A and B, with A superior to B superior to 0. The issue of the accuracy will be a recurrent theme in my debunking. The golden ratio has a very precise value and property, and an approximation cannot fulfill the requirements of the definition. Just because you want it really bad to fit won't make it any more true.
Heart pulses.
First, you talk about the heart pulses. Indeed, some studies suggest that the ratio between the systolic and diastolic blood pressures is somehow close to the golden ratio. For the ignorant pirates out there, systolic and diastolic are the bigger and the smaller numbers that the doctor gives you after saying you should eat less bacon and drink less beer. Bullshit, I say, YAAARR! Back to the heart pulses. A study said that the closer to the golden ratio, the better in order not to die from a heart attack. But with that accuracy actually, as long as you are close to 5/3 or 1.6, it's fine. So, it's most probably more I want to see the golden ratio everywhere tendency that prompted the authors to see a phi value here.
DNA spiral.
The DNA spiral. It was proposed by a study that at least some part of the DNA chain respected the proportion of a golden spiral. It means a spiral with a growth factor equal to phi, the golden ratio. But it did not convince everybody. You also have to know that the structure of the DNA spiral in vivo is nothing related with the ones usually studied by X-ray diffraction or other techniques. For example, the proteins forming the chromosomes are removed during these operations, and it's simply a completely different arrangement.
And the special design of the universe, which is named as dodecahedron.
The universe shape. You are forgetting that the dodecahedron is only one of the possibilities evoked for the shape of the universe. A flat universe or the pickled horn are also possible, for example. Cherry picking. Because it's worth it.
And the leaf array rules of plants.
The plants. That's true. Some plants have leaves and petal organized in spiral. For example, sunflower spiral. The plants form spirals. Just making spirals. And as you would expect, statistically, sometimes randomly it happens that these spirals are golden spirals. But the truth is that the patterns are actually mostly influenced by moisture and nutrient conditions. Spirals in sunflowers or in pine cones don't necessarily match a golden spiral, but funnily you will only see the one that are fitting in such videos. Cherry picking. Because it's worth it. By the way, this cherry picking concerns all other arguments about golden spirals that you will find on the internet, such as the Nautilus shell, for example.
And the snowflakes crystals.
Snowflakes. They sometimes have proportions that follow this ratio, but actually, most of the time, snowflakes are pretty asymmetrical due to the way they form. Even if we forget about the asymmetry and only consider the parts that respect this ratio, what about looking for the force interactions that may explain the physics behind it and the snow crystal, which are also falling from the sky in the end? They are definitely not respecting this golden ratio. They are hexagonal, triangular. Come on, have you done a 10th of the job on an example that could almost have been worth looking at? If you wanted to prove something scientifically, you are definitely not on the right path, deckhand.
And the spiral structure of numerous galaxies.
And finally, the spiral form of numerous galaxies. And we've got our winner for cherry picking. Cherry pick. Oh, shut up! Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's big, it's dirty, filthy and unhealthy. There are more than billions and billions and billions of galaxies in the known universe. Dr. von Trottel warns explicitly not to think too much about what the whole universe may represent, since it may provoke vertigos, weird feelings, and a persistent awe at the beauty of our lives. Anyway, in these billions of galaxies, a big chunk of them have the form of a logarithmic spiral for physical reasons. And here is the trick. Even if 0.0001% of these spiral galaxies are golden spirals, which is just a subtype of such spirals, it would still be thousands and thousands of cherry-picking possibilities for you, my dear. Yep, that's how damn big the universe and your observation bias are. So let's recapitulate. Basically, all the examples you gave are weak, inaccurate, and are mostly based on the fact that spirals appear often in nature, and that sometimes these spirals follow the golden ratio. Mazel tov! You just scientifically proved the existence of spirals in nature and of selective blindness.
It is observed that this ratio is applied to the pyramids of Egypt, like it was applied to various famous architectural works. Famous astronomer Kepler defines this number as a precious treasury.
This ratio only matches well for the Pyramid of Cheops. For the other ones, it's much more a rough or exaggerated approximation. And you remember what we said about the approximations here, right? Let's talk about the Pyramid of Maidu, which was so well built according to a godly design that the outside just slipped to its doom. Or another pyramid of Pharaoh Snefru, the bent pyramid, which design was so godly precise that they changed the plan in the middle of the construction. Funnily, it looks all like first trials and empirical experiencing. What is sure is that the Egyptians knew the 3 to 4 to 5 triangle, which was the only right triangle they knew actually, and which give golden pyramids. For the other pyramids, many experts debate if the golden ratio is approximated by chance or by design. Nobody can say for sure if the Egyptians knew the golden ratio or not. Implied godly design here with all these elements is quite slippery, and it will only convince people who want to believe it, and that's not the principle of science. That's the principle of faith. And you were the one claiming scientific fact at the very beginning of this video. And what about all the other thousands of architectural works that don't match the golden ratio? More about that later if you don't mind.
As the vision expert Dr. Stephen Markout was proved as a result of his 25-year-long study that human faces and bodies designed pursuant to this ratio are accepted as beautiful by every single person in the world. If the aspect ratio of any form is 1.618, then this form is convenient to golden mean. Perfect design.
A very interesting point. Thanks for coming up with bullshit. Let's give a shit for 2 seconds before I start throwing up my fish and rum-based nutrition at your face. Yes, it might be that the approximation of the 5/3 ratio is often to be seen in a few elements of the human body, but it still remains a rough approximation without real solid evidence. And whatever you may tell, there is no statistical or scientific evidence that the elements you showed have proportions that tend more to 5/3 than to the golden ratio. Dr. Marquardt did not produce any data about the subject. He just gave his opinion on this matter based on his observation. I could write a book and say that goats are the best sex partners ever. It wouldn't make it any more true even if I swear in this book that it's based on 20 years of observation. The only scientific paper existing on this subject is the one of psychologist Professor Green from the University of Toronto. But it's not an article about experiments, it's a review of the literature about the topic, which is very lame as an evidence. A study from a team also in Toronto found out that the ratio of the distance between the eyes and the mouth, respectively to the horizontal and the vertical length of the face, are very relevant criteria for attractiveness. But none of these ratios are close to the golden ratio. Let's also bring up the worst part about your argument. You speak about the aesthetic beauty. How could you possibly bring up a more stupid topic? Nowadays, all pictures in magazines are modified by computer. The size of the eyes, the proportion of the face, and even in the Islamic Republic of Iran, many women do everything they can in order to get no surgery. You cannot even blame the corrupted Western culture as a lazy difference in this case. The beauty standards are so much of a natural thing that everybody in the world uses artificial means to reach their own chosen standards. And finally, not all studies show a unanimous acceptance of this proportion as much more beautiful. You are once more cherry picking. And on top of that, you are cherry picking in poor and weak arguments. Tell me, sailor, are you already fishing in the port's water? Or that went quick, eh?
So, where is the golden mean point of the Earth?
Your question is a nonsense. The Earth is a very imperfect sphere. In French, a very appropriate term is that the Earth is a patatoid, which comes from the slang word for potato. So Earth is as imperfectly spherical as a potato. Your question is meaningless. You want a good example? Well, according to the French Institut de Recherche pour le Développement, IRD, the peak of the Ecuadorian volcano Chimborazo is the most distant point to the center of the Earth, and it's something like 1.8 kilometers farther from it than the peak Mount Everest, which is yet good 2.5 kilometers higher than this volcano in regard to the sea level. Funny, eh? Okay, folks, I was editing the video and then I noticed, oh dear, that's way too long, we gotta split. So, we are going to end this first part of the video here, and yeah, see you next time for yet another chunk of this piece of take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. And we're not gonna take it anymore. We've got the right to choose, and there is no way we'll lose it. This is our life, this is our song. We'll fight 8,000 legions down peak our destiny, 'cause you don't know us, you don't belong. We're not gonna take it, no, we ain't gonna take it, and we're not gonna take it anymore. Oh, you're so condescending, your goal is never ending. We don't want nothing from you. Your life is trite and jaded, boring and confiscated. If that's your best won't do. Wow, we're right, yeah, we're free, yeah, we'll fight, yeah, you'll see. Whoa, we're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. And we're not gonna take it.